Here is something almost no one told us growing up. You are not the same person every day. Not hormonally, not energetically, not emotionally, or even cognitively. Across roughly 28 days, you move through 4 distinct phases, each with its own hormonal signature, its own strengths, and its own needs. You are quite literally 4 slightly different women across the entire month. And here's what we were taught instead, that we should be the same every single day. Same energy, same productivity, same workout, same output, same mood, day after day after day. Very much like a machine. We were handed this model of consistency that is built for a 24-hour hormonal cycle, which is exactly what men have. And then we are told that something is wrong with us or broken and we couldn't sustain it. Well, nothing is actually wrong with you. You were just handed the wrong operating manual for your body. So today, in our second to last episode of this series about cortisol and the lies of this trend, we are diving into cyclical living, the radical, ancient, deeply freeing idea that you have a rhythm and that honoring it instead of overriding it might be the most hormone healing thing that you could actually ever do. And this is what it looks like to truly work with your body. So let's go. Welcome back to Healing Her Feminine. I'm Lindsey Alexis, functional hormone and nervous system coach. This is episode 6 of Hormone Culture Is Lying to You. And in case you have missed the previous 5 episodes, we spent the first one kind of dismantling this whole trend. Then we moved into the belly myth and the supplements, the food rules, what to eat when and how. And then last week we turned toward the real medicine, which was your nervous system. So today, like I said, we are going to go further into working with your body. So your cycle and the practical, I guess it would be practical, but the practice of living cyclically. And I'm going to be honest, this is truthfully like one of the favorite things I love to do myself, but also to teach, because when women truly wrap their head around cycle syncing, literally everything clicks, like not just in their head, but in their body as well. And it's like watching somebody finally get permission to allow themselves to kind of enter this flow state that they never really got permission to enter when they were younger. So the thing is also that this permission, it doesn't have to be the same every day. You have permission to rest on some days, and then you have permission to just kind of flow instead of forcing and hustling or grinding. And so this is kind of the door that I want to open with you guys today. So let's map out the 4 phases, and we'll talk about how to live inside of each one as the month proceeds and you go through each one of these. So your menstrual cycle has roughly 4 phases. And a beautiful way to understand them is as inner seasons, because they mirror the energy of our natural year, right? We have 4 phases in the year. You have 4 phases in your cycle. cool thing too, the moon also has 4 phases. So looking at all of these things, it kind of starts making sense, right? You already know about your menstrual phase itself. Obviously, that is going to be when you bleed. It is your inner winter. It is the shedding, right? So think winter, shed leaves, things die off, things like that. So here is when energy is going to naturally be at its lowest. This is the ultimate time to rest, reflect, release, turn inward. Okay. Also, compare this to the new moon. When we have a new moon, there is no moon present. I mean, it's still physically there, but there's no light shining on it. There's no energy being given to it. It also is in a phase of rest. So, in a culture that honored cyclical living, this honestly would be a time of retreat. However, instead, we are expected to perform exactly as we do every other day, and a lot of times, often while we're in pain. Your inner winter asks for rest and quiet. It's also, interestingly, a time of heightened intuition and inner knowing. The veil between you and the 5D, the amplification of your inner voice is absolutely clear. The veil is very thin. And if you get quiet enough to hear it, so many downloads will happen during this time, especially in your dreams. Your dreams will become a lot more vivid. So, after we have this menses cycle, it could be, well, depending on if you're on birth control or not, it could last anywhere from 3 to 7 days. If you're further along, more towards transitioning into menopause, then those cycles actually might be longer. So it's also really great for you to be tracking your flow because a lot of us too also have inconsistencies, which cycle syncing, when done correctly, will actually help align your cycle to be on time every single month. So, that aside, the next phase is your follicular phase. And this happens pretty much directly after you bleed. It happens as your estrogen starts rising. So think of this as like your inner spring, okay? And like I said, it's roughly about days 6 to 13 or so. And energy is returning. You're like literally think spring, right? Rising, fresh, blooming, like all of these things. Your energy is increasing, and this is a time where you're taking those downloads and those intuitive things that you got during your menstrual cycle, like your menses, and you're taking them into creation. Okay, so you're taking the idea, now you're creating it, right? You have planted the seeds and now you are starting to like water these seeds. Okay, this is a time for new ideas like planning, starting things, curiosity, openness. Now, if you are cycle syncing with the moon, there are 2 categories of women. One will bleed on the full moon and the other will bleed on the new moon. And lots of times these switch throughout the year, let alone over the course of many years. So it often depends on where you are at in the season of life. Okay. What I mean by that is one of them deals more with healing other people, and the other one deals with healing yourself. It deals with creating like a family, right? And the other one deals with creating like business, okay? Things external. So you have one that's internal, one that's external. So depending on which one of those you are in, if you are with the new moon and you bleed with the new moon, then after the new moon, we start to rise into the full moon. And so this also coincides with this follicular phase that I'm speaking of too. So you actually have more amped up energy um, during this time if you are one of the women who bleed with the new moon. Again, if you don't fall into either one of those categories, it is likely because of some reason why your menstrual cycle is off. And really paying attention to cycle syncing will actually shift your menstrual cycle into one of those two categories. Okay. So energies are turning, right? New ideas. We're planning things, we're starting things, curiosity, openness, all these stuff. So there is a sense of possibility and like this budding energy. It's a great time for trying new things, learning new things, and initiating projects. So, for those of you who are in the online business realm, this is a great time to start putting out your new offers, start doing your launches, okay? Because the next phase, your ovulation phase, which is mid cycle, is when your estrogen is actually peaked and you release your egg, right? So this is going to be your summer. It's typically around days 14 to 16. And again, this is the height of your cycle. Your energy is the highest. You feel really good in your body. You're most magnetic, most social, most verbally articulate. You're the most confident, right? This is when the actual launch, if you are in the online space, this is when the actual launch should be taking place. That window of whether you're doing your workshop or a webinar or something, like this is the time that this should be taking place. Um, other than that, this is like the time when you're meeting new people, right? You're forming connections with people. This is a time for you to write books, right? If you're a writer, things that are where you show up visibly in the world, okay? This is ultimately like your most ideal version that everyone expects you to be literally all month long. You are this person for this week or week and a half, depending on your cycle. And it's just this radiance that you have about you, right? This confidence, this capability, very outgoing. Like I said, things with visibility are really high here in connection. Things that require you to show up and shine, do it during this week. Then the next phase we have is your luteal phase. And so after ovulation, obviously the egg has to die off, and we're getting ready to start our cleanse with our actual menses. So after ovulation, we have a few days here where your progesterone is going to rise. Progesterone is your calming hormone, and everything, like I said, kind of declines toward your next bleed. So think about going back to the ovulation. Your ovulation is going to be that full moon energy, okay? And so now we're going into the next phase of the moon back towards the new moon, right? So this is your autumn season. This is your fall season. It's roughly between days 17 and 28. The first part of this can still feel really strong and productive. So it's often a great time for focusing on very detailed work, completing things, tying off loose ends, nesting, organizing, all of those things. So as it progresses towards your period, though, that is when your energy is going to wind down and you're going to focus more inwardly. So you might be feeling more sensitive, you might be feeling more critical, and a lot less social than you were for your ovulation week. And this is often the time when we start seeing our PMS symptoms start showing up. But understood cyclically, it's asking you simply to slow down, right? To stop trying to like force yourself and push yourself to keep being productive. Okay. And so when we often don't listen to that, that's where those symptoms start kicking up because you're not listening to what your body's asking of you. So make sure you are slowing down, you are completing things, you are preparing for your rest week, and pay attention to what isn't working because this is also a time for shedding things that aren't in alignment with you. Typically, we say for the full moon cycle, when you hit that full moon, that's the time for release, right? Think of things, there's rituals you can do, but think of things that you want to let go of that are no longer serving you, that are no longer in alignment with you. And the new moon is the time, like at the end of the new moon, to release all of those. And like I said, there are moon rituals out there. Um, I even have some myself that allow you to release, and then you release during the rest of that cycle with the moon until you get to the new moon. Okay. New moon, like I said, we're resting, we're absorbing, we are heightened in our intuition. And again, we repeat the process. Okay. So that's why it's good to also let go of things that aren't serving you so that when you have the new downloads, you have the space to fill them back up again, right? And you're filling them back up with things that are in alignment with yourself. So, those are the four phases. They are your internal four seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall, and they happen every single month. So, you are a cyclical being, just like the moon, just like the seasons, and just like the tides. So, you were never meant to be the same every single day. And that's not a flaw in your design. That actually is the design. So let me tie this into everything that we've been unraveling, because cyclical living is an antidote to do so many things outside of this cortisol trend. Like, it totally butts heads with it. So remember the trend, okay? Diet culture is underneath of it. We've already called that out. So it's going to sell you the idea that you need to be consistent, that you need to be optimized, and that you need to be the same every single day. The same workout intensity, the same eating pattern, the same productivity, the same amount of energy. And if you're not doing all of those things, that you are failing and you need to buy something in order to fix it. So the entire model assumes you're basically like a machine, just flat, consistent, no ups and downs. Okay. And your body isn't. Your body is not that. Your body is cyclical. I just explained that. So when you try to force that same high intensity workout every single day, you're going to hammer your body into like so much dysregulation, especially when you're in your winter season, right? And it's calling for you to rest. So here's where you start to wonder, like, why am I so exhausted? My cortisol must be really wrecked, right? When you try to eat the same way every single day, you're ignoring the needs that genuinely shift across your cycle. So, what your body needs or wants in your menstrual cycle phase, your menses phase, is not the same food that it needs in your ovulation phase. So, these are really things that we all should really be thinking of as women. So, when you expect yourself to be equally sociable and visible and like on, right? Every single day, you're obviously going to burn out because you're performing summer energy, and maybe you're in your autumn or winter energy, right? So, can you kind of see like how these things piece together? So much of this cortisol dysregulation and the burnout and the feeling of like failing or brokenness, it literally is coming from forcing a cyclical body into like this flat, consistent mold. And the trend keeps you fighting against your own rhythms. So cyclical living invites you to kind of stop fighting and literally just start flowing. And flowing with your body, like not your friend's body, not your sister's body, specifically yours, instead of fighting against it, right? And it's profoundly down regulating for your nervous system, which, like we talked about last week, is the actual root of hormonal health. You see how that clicks in? So, this is what working with your body instead of against it actually means in practice. It's not just a slogan, it's living according to your real rhythm rather than this one that's being imposed on you. And it's actually the quite opposite of everything that this cortisol trend is selling. Now, I do want to be careful here because cycle syncing has itself become, again, a bit of a trend. And I don't want to hand you this new set of like rigid rules, okay? And have you feel like you're failing at them. That again would just be another diet culture issue, right? And it would be dressed up in this moon phase costume. So let me give you the spirit of it and not this like rigid prescription. Cycle syncing simply means loosely aligning your life, your energetic expectations, your movement, like your exercises, your food, the work that you do, whether it's online or for somebody else, aligning all of those with your phases to the best that you can. Okay. Emphasis on loosely and where you can, because the goal is not to perfectly optimize every single phase. The goal is to stop fighting your rhythm and start honoring it in whatever ways are actually realistic for your actual life. For example, for movement, harder, stronger training when your energy is high, which would be your follicular and ovulatory phases, aka your spring and summer phases. Then, gentle movements like walks or yoga, even resting in and of itself is also productive. We need to keep reminding ourselves that rest is productive. Do this when your energy is lower. This would be your menstrual cycle, right? Your actual menses week or late into your luteal phase. These are going to be your winter and autumn phases. It's not these rigid rules. It just stops forcing peak performance, peak intensity when your body's asking for release and rest. Another example for food. Your body genuinely needs more nourishment, more complex carbs. Yes, I am saying you need to eat carbs in your luteal phase. That's not a willpower failure. You'll also notice you crave more carbs during this time, just naturally. And so if you're fighting against that, if you are pushing against that, your body's going to feel not safe because you're not providing it what it needs. And that again goes back to what we talked about last week. Your body needs to feel safe. So if you feel stuck in your weight, you're probably not eating your carbs to the extent or during the time that your body actually wants to have the carbs. So again, that's real physiology. Honor that increased hunger. You're going to need iron rich foods around the time that you're bleeding. It just makes sense. You're losing iron, you're losing blood, a lot of it, especially the closer we get to menopause. So please replenish with iron rich foods. And that doesn't always have to be meat either. Spinach is really high in iron, for example. There's other options out there. Lighter, fresher foods when your energy is high, because you don't want to be weighing your body down when you have peak energy. So again, all of this is very loose guidance. It's not commandments. Another example would be for work and your life, okay? So schedule these big visible social things like I just mentioned, the launches or maybe even hard conversations, networking events around your inner summer if you can. These are going to be when you feel naturally magnetic and things will start happening for you when you do this. Save those deep, quiet, reflective, completing your work things for your autumn season. Plan in your planner, initiate new tasks, those types of things or projects in your springtime. And then absolutely 100% protect your rest and do some reflection during your winter season to whatever degree your life really allows. Even if it's just a small adjustment, it's going to help. The point is awareness, okay, and honoring it. It's not this perfect optimization. Please don't be OCD about it. Even just like knowing what phase you're in and giving yourself permission to embody that different energy as it needs, that's actually the most beneficial thing you can do. So please stop blaming yourself for not being consistent. You have to understand you were never meant to be consistent. That self-compassion alone allows your nervous system to relax and feel safe, and that is the healing. I do want to touch base on those people out there who are listening who have the irregular cycles. Your cycle goes absent, or maybe you are perimenopausal or postmenopausal. You can still sync to the moon's phases instead. Simply practice the deeper principles. So, honoring that you too have rhythms, that your energy is going to ebb and flow, and that you're not meant to be the same thing every day. So, how I compared the moon to your cycle, use those the new moon, the full moon, the waxing and waning. That cyclical wisdom applies even if you don't literally have a menstrual cycle. Okay. So let's talk about why we have to reclaim this at all, because that itself is part of the story. So we live in a world largely structured around a 24-hour rhythm. Okay. We focus on this male hormonal cycle where testosterone peaks in the morning and the same general pattern repeats daily. It's a beautiful design in and of itself. Okay. Absolutely. Sometimes I wish I could do that. But like I just said, it's not ours. It's not ours. It's not our design. It's not our cycle. However, our work schedules, our productivity expectations, our fitness culture, they're all built around that 24-hour cycle, that flat daily consistency, right? We peak, we go down, we peak, we go down over and over and over again. And that's not us. Women are being expected to perform in a system that literally wasn't built for our bodies. And then we are also made to feel guilt and shame and inadequate when we can't keep up, or we feel irritable or overwhelmed, or, whatever the feeling is when we're not meeting those expectations. And it goes a little deeper than this, too. For a long time, women's cyclical nature was actually treated as a weakness. It was treated as a liability, something that needed to be hid, something to medicate, something to override, something to push through. Okay, the cultural message used to be consistent like a man and don't let your cycle get in the way. Just act like nothing's happening. How many times have you wanted to take off of work because you're in pain and bleeding, and you went against it and went to work anyways and tried to perform like you would any other day, right? We have learned to be ashamed of our rhythms. We try to white knuckle through our periods, push through the PMS, the pain, right? Don't let it show that you're in pain. You still have to go grocery shopping. You still have to clean the house, whatever. You still have to go to work, right? Just mentioned that one. You still have to show up. Even though the inside of you is literally tearing itself apart. Something that I heard a while back was, I don't remember who said it or what the context was, but they mentioned having your menstrual, your actual menses was similar to like a gunshot wound, let's say. You wouldn't be going to work if you got shot, but women are expected to go to work at the same capacity. Just some food for thought. So, reclaiming this cyclical living is genuinely kind of radical, right? It's saying that my rhythm is not a weakness, it's wisdom. It's saying my need for rest is my inner winter and it's not laziness, it's actually intelligence. My magnetic energy at ovulation is not vanity, it's a gift that I can use and should be using, right? Sensitivity during your luteal phase is also not a problem. It's heightened discernment that is showing you the truth, right? We need discernment. More people need discernment, honestly. So when you reframe your cycle from this liability to actual feminine superpower, from something that is happening to you to something that's happening for you, literally everything changes. And here's a hormonal payoff tying back to our whole entire series. When you stop fighting your cycle and you really start honoring it, you reduce the chronic low grade stress of constantly overriding your body. That's going to reduce the cortisol dysregulation. It's going to calm the nervous system. We've said a bunch of times already in this episode. That's going to calm your nervous system. It lets your hormones find their natural rhythm because you're no longer at war with them. You're not fighting against them. Cyclical living isn't just this nice spirituality type situation, okay? It's literally regulating your body physiologically. Again, it's never about cortisol. It was about coming into the right relationship with your own cyclical being. So let's take this into the soul of this, okay? Because cyclical living is where the science and the sacred meet absolutely beautifully. Like it's like the best artistic painting that you could ever lay eyes on, right? Or the best horizon in nature that you could ever witness, okay? There's something, it's so ancient. Women have always been cyclical, okay? And in much older traditions, this was actually really honored instead of revered. The bleeding time was so sacred. The cycle was connected to the moon, connected to the tides, to the rhythms of Earth itself. Like it was so embodied and honored. Women's cyclical nature was understood as a kind of attunement to the larger rhythms of life. It was a wisdom, a power, not this liability. We've largely lost that, but our bodies still remember. Our bodies are still functioning like that. Your body is still keeping time with something that is so ancient, whether or not our culture and society is acknowledging it. When you begin to live cyclically, you're not just optimizing your hormones, okay? You are literally coming back to this relationship with a deep, feminine, embodied wisdom that the modern world has literally tried to flatten or take away from us. You're remembering that you're a part of nature, you're not separate from it. You're subject to rhythms, to seasons, to ebbs and flows, just like everything alive. And there's this really profound peace and calm in knowing that. There's a relief, like a nice, fresh, deep breath inhaled and exhaled, like this relief in stopping the fight to be linear and consistent in the body. That this body was made to be cyclical and flowing like a river, right? There's something even deeper than that. Your inner winter, your bleeding time, when that veil, like I mentioned earlier, is super thin and your intuition is really high, historically, this has been understood as a time of very heightened spiritual and intuitive access. Many women find that if they actually rest and turn inward during their period, instead of pushing through doing the same thing, they actually receive insight, clarity, and answers to things that you've been struggling with, you've been wrestling with. So, your cycle is not just this fertility schedule. It's not something that needs to be controlled. It's not something that needs to be pushed to the side. It's a built in rhythm of activity and rest, expression and reflection, the doing and the being that, if honored, keeps you in balance physically, mentally, and spiritually. This is literally the heart of my whole science meets soul business slogan, I guess you could say. Like, this is everything that I do, right? This science meets soul. Like, here's the physiology, but also here's the intuitive part because it matters. The science is real. There are 4 phases. Your hormones do shift. You do have different physiological needs per each phase. But then you have the soul piece, which is also real. You have this ancient wisdom, this sacredness of the rhythm, this spiritual attunement, the intuition, the downloads, all of these things. And the amazing thing is, you don't have to choose between them. Your body is both a biological system and a sacred, cyclical, intuitive vessel. Honoring your cycle allows you to embody both at once. And in a culture that has literally like severed us from this, simply coming back to it is a true homecoming. And honestly, it's kind of quite a rebellion. So let's make this real and doable because like I say all the time, I don't want you to leave with just this beautiful conceptual idea. Okay. I want you to fully understand and embody and be able to integrate it into your life. Okay. Now, first thing that I've already mentioned is simply track, right? Simply track your cycle. Do it for ideally 3 months. Okay. Just track it. Use an app. I use Flow. There are other apps. Some people have the ring. You can use the or a ring. You can use a journal, right? If you don't want to do something technical, you can use a journal. If you don't have a consistent cycle, you can use the moon. Just track it, okay? Know what season you're in. So simply saying, like, hey, I'm in my winter season right now. I need to rest, right? That's going to change how you relate to the different energy and needs of those days, okay? Of the week and a half, whatever it is. Awareness, 100 times over, is almost always the most beneficial thing. Awareness. Next, once you've done that, give yourself permission to actually embody the different energies of the different phases without shame. When you're in your winter season and you're tired, let that be okay. Listen to it and rest. When you're in your summer and you're buzzing and you're high energy, use it, be visible, right? Stop expecting to be the same person with the same energy, with the same routines every single day. Third, make one loose adjustment to start. Okay. So maybe it's just gentler movement during your period, or maybe it's honoring the extra hunger in your luteal phase without any guilt or shame. It could be scheduling hard conversations or doing projects during your ovulation phase, okay? Just pick one. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to overhaul everything, okay? So we're going to track first, kind of figure it out, feel it out. Then we're going to embody the energy of each one of those weeks. And then after we've embodied that energy and we kind of notice the ebbs and flows, then that's when I want you to start picking and choosing, okay? The fourth thing, and I cannot stress this enough, protect your inner winter as much as you possibly can. Even if it's just small amounts of extra rest or quiet time or reflection, whatever it is, please do it. Treat it as a mini retreat to whatever degree that your life allows it to be, even if it's just an hour. Okay. The fifth thing I want you to do is really drop this obsession. This is not about perfect optimization. It's about honoring your rhythm in a realistic, compassionate way. If you miss a phase or your life doesn't allow for this perfect syncing, then that's fine. Let it be. The spirit is flowing with your body. Okay. It's not adding a rigid new system that you have the potentiality to fail at. And again, if you are in perimenopause or postmenopausal or you have an irregular cycle, practice the deeper principle. Okay. Honor the rhythms that you have because you do have rhythms still. Your energy is still going to ebb and flow. And that rest and activity should honor those ebbs and flows. Okay. It should be alternating. Sync yourself to the moon if that feels easier for you. That wisdom is going to be way bigger and more beneficial than actually like literally trying to figure out your cycle. All right. Now, if you guys have been resonating with the things I've been talking about and you're thinking, okay, I have no idea what phase I'm in. My cycle is a mess. Or maybe you're thinking, I don't know how to actually like apply these things to my real life, but I really want to. My schedule is real and it's chaotic and I don't know. Or, my body is real and like I have these habits or something that prevent me from this. Like whatever the fill in the blank thing is, but like you want to do this. Okay. And you want to do this well, whatever that looks like for you, and you just kind of need the help to kind of figure it out. Then I really want you to start with my new quiz. It's called the Body Reconnection Score. It is free. Literally will take you less than 3 minutes to answer. And it's going to show you exactly what's happening in your body right now. This isn't like a generic protocol. It's literally a clear picture of where you actually are. And like I said, you're going to get these results at the end that kind of tell you what the next step is going to be based off of where you're at right now. So go ahead and take it. It's at lindsayalexis.co/score. It's also going to be in the show notes. Then, if you do that and you want to go deeper, or you want to learn more, or want to know how to come home to yourself, I am hosting a live workshop on August 5th at noon. It's called Coming Home to Your Body, obviously. Um, and we're going to spend time together actually mapping out your cycle, your hormones, the energetic patterns, all these things, and building a way of living and eating and moving and all of those good stuff that we talked about today by honoring your rhythm in a realistic way. Okay. Not some like my life's not busy, I have all the free time in the world type thing. Like, no, like I understand you guys are high functioning women, you guys have full schedules. I get it. And so, how to integrate that into the life that you have. So, go ahead and save your seats. It is at lindsayalexis.co/workshop, one word. Those are also, that link's also going to be in the show notes. Also, if you are listening to this and August 5th has passed, know that this is a recurring workshop. So I will be hosting it more than once. I haven't decided yet, as I'm recording this, if I want to host it monthly or just quarterly. We will see. So you don't have to keep fighting your body, your cyclicalness of your body. You can come home to your rhythm, and that is exactly what the quiz is about. That is exactly what the workshop is about. That is exactly what all of my programs is about, is coming home to yourself, reconnecting from this disconnect that we have been taught and told and preached and practiced. Okay. Again, here is your practice for the week. If you're cycling, I want you to find out what phase you're in right now. Name it as a season, right? I'm in my inner autumn. I'm in my inner spring. Just name it. And then ask it the question, what does a season of my cycle actually need from me right now? Does it need more rest? Does it need more expression? Do I need to go out and connect with people? Do I need more quiet time? See if you can honor that need in even a very small way today. Okay. If you aren't cycling or it is irregular, then I want you to ask the deeper version, where am I in my energy right now? More inward or more outward? And what does that ask of me? And then honor it in a small way. Practicing the fundamental skill of cyclical living, notice your rhythm and flow with it. Do not override it. One season, one need, one small honoring. That's exactly how it begins. So, wrapping everything up, it was never about cortisol. Every single episode, it is never about cortisol. It was about cyclical living, right? You are a cyclical being, you're a cyclical woman, and you're trying to live by a flat, linear, manual way, right? It's not written for your body. It's literally making you feel inadequate or broken or shame in some type of way. And it's not fair because you were never meant to live like that, okay? You are cyclical. You are not broken. You literally are four women across an entire month, and each version of you has its own gifts, its own needs, its own awareness, and you're meant to flow through your seasons. Do not force yourself to be the same person every single day. So, when you stop stop fighting your rhythm and you actually start honoring it, you don't just heal your hormones, though you do. You come home to an ancient embodied wisdom that the world tried to take out of you. You remember that you're a part of nature and you give yourself the most radical permission that there is to be exactly as you are, cyclical, rhythmic, ever changing, and absolutely whole in all of it. So thank you guys for being here today. Thank you for being willing to reclaim a wisdom that was tried to take from us. That reclamation is its own medicine. Next week is going to be our final episode in the series. We're going to pull everything together, everything we've learned. I'm going to tell you the whole truth about what hormonal culture has been lying to you about, what's actually true instead. So it's going to be the series finale, part 7, and I will see you guys there. Until then, please be gentle with yourself. Find your season, honor your rhythm. You are never meant to be the same every single day. This is Healing Her Feminine. I'm Lindsey Alexis, and please take good care of yourself.